At 10:30, the evolution of who's on first. But first, the continuity and change of the Doctor Doctor sketch with App State culinary professor J.J. Drumjump. You're watching the TV Guide Network.
Oh, hello, I didn't see you there. Ah, yes, the Doctor Doctor sketch, simply an American classic. Today, this trope of comedy centers around a person telling their doctor of a specific ailment, and the doctor responding with a pun or funny comment. Of course, what these comments would be has changed a lot since the first time this sketch was featured. Infectious disease has shaped American life heavily, and this scene has altered and adapted to match the medical advancements of its era. The first Doctor Doctor sketch premiered on the John Winthrop Variety Hour show on NBC in 1621. Although, when it first appeared, the sketch was distinctly more slapstick than it would be in later years. Let's take a look.
Doctor, doctor, I got the consumption.
Oh, well, that's no problem. We'll use some leeches, clear up any miasmas, bleed you a bit. Where's my bucket? Oh, brother.
Yes, you can see that there wasn't much wit in the early years. This was, of course, because the methods used, like bleeding and leeches, didn't work. They believed that disease was caused by imbalanced humors, or swamp miasmas, or gases, and many people who contracted illnesses simply died after receiving treatment. But that didn't stop them from trying. In the 1730s, the Great Awakening came around, and the religious revivalism in medicine was demonstrated in this sketch. The next scene was shown 30 times over the 2 years airing of John Edwards' Sinners in the Hands of an Angry Knight Live. Let's take a look.
Doctor, doctor, I think I've got dysentery.
What's this?
It's the Bible.
And what's inside?
It's the word of the Lord.
And what do you think I'm going to do with it?
Oh, please don't hit me with the Bible.
Bible Smackdown.
Yes, the main treatment for infectious disease at that time was prayer, as the accepted cause for illness was an angry deity. And, of course, this view persisted and still persists in some parts of America. Some people blamed God for the series of massive yellow fever epidemics that occurred in the nation in the late 18th century. A huge change occurred in the skit, however, when the British doctor Edward Jenner discovered the first vaccine, a vaccine for smallpox, in 1796. People in the colonies and US had been using the process of variolation to protect from smallpox for hundreds of years, but the vaccine was the first method in the world to actually protect someone from contracting a disease without giving the illness to them in some form. The vaccine used cowpox to prevent the smallpox infection, which was absolutely ripe for comedy. Let's look at this scene from the Federalist comedy show, which premiered on HBO in 1810.
Doctor, doctor, I think my baby has the smallpox.
Well, that can't be. I just vaccinated him last week. Oh, I see. Your baby has a case of the cows.
Do you mean cowpox? Could the vaccine have given him cowpox?
No, just cows.
Edgar, no!
Although there was an effective preventative measure against smallpox, the disease was still widespread during the time. This is because the state governments made essentially no effort to distribute the vaccines to US citizens, and there were no vaccine requirements for public education, as there are now. But it was still a major advancement, and the Doctor Doctor sketches reflected this. An important aspect of infectious disease during the early 19th century was the duality between physicians and midwives in regards to childbirth. While physicians slowly became more popular due to their basis in science, their methods were very unhygienic and resulted in remarkably high infection and death rates amongst pregnant women. Midwives were more old-fashioned, but they were more sanitary and more effective at delivering children without maternal casualty. In the Doctor Doctor sketch, it was one of the first opportunities for women to participate aside from being patients. Oh, I wonder who that could be.
My cherry Kool-Aid, sir?
Ah, yes. Got to have my cherry Kool-Aid. Thank you. This next scene really demonstrates the competition between midwives and physicians. It premiered on Henry Clay's Pretend Time in 1823. Let's have a look. Doctor Doctor Special Edition, Physician versus Midwife.
I'm clearly the better medicator. I use science when I cure people, and I'm going to put every midwife out of business.
Nonsense! My methods don't kill nearly as many people as your bleedings and calomel do. I suggest you sell all your belongings and switch to herbalism or homeopathy or some other job altogether before your life is over.
Oh my god, I'm way too young for a midwife crisis.
When the Civil War broke out, awful conditions on the battlefield and in base camps, inadequate food, clothing and supplies, and totally unsanitary surgical procedures caused the blossoming of infectious diseases on the battlefield. Gangrene-infected wounds and dysentery claimed the lives of more soldiers than the bullets did. Actually, it wasn't the gangrene that killed people. It was the botched amputations and unclean surgical instruments. Doctors in the time actually believed that surgical wounds were supposed to pustulate and turn yellow as part of the natural healing process, while this actually meant the sutures were infected.
Intentional malpractice can, of course, be seen in the notably in poor taste sketch on Late Morning with Thaddeus Stevens. Let's check it out.
Doctor, I've been shot in the arm.
Oh, well, I'm so sorry, soldier, but I'm afraid we're gonna have to amputate.
Doctor, I don't think my wound is healing right.
What? It's healing perfectly, can't you see? But we'll amputate just to be safe.
Doctor, I have no arms and cholera.
I'm going to amputate your butt.
Strangely, right after the end of the Civil War, antiseptic surgery was discovered. This saved many lives from the diseases that people contracted often during their treatment. But it came too late to save those poor soldiers. This accomplishment did mark the end of the bumbling surgeon trope in the Doctor sketch of the later years. Another huge advancement came in 1877 when Robert Koch and Louis Pasteur established the germ theory of infectious disease. This theory stated that infectious disease is caused by tiny microorganisms, too small to be seen with the naked eye, that populate the body and cause harm. This was incredible for the sketch, as it allowed the doctors to not only diagnose the patients, but also to explain what was happening to them, at least to some extent. Of course, the germ theory also allowed for the real doctors to find cures and understand how disease spread, but there was a notable change in how Doctor skits went after that. We can see this change in one particular sketch that premiered in 1885 on the Fox network, on Alice Sanger's comedy show / psychic readings. Let's take a look.
Doctor, I have yellow fever.
Ah, yes, I see you do. A mosquito must have bitten you, and tiny microorganisms invaded your bloodstream.
Well, are you going to do anything about it?
I'm sorry, ma'am, but I'm a very busy man and I don't have time to deal with your small problems.
That man later died. But the important thing is that the theories of medicine regarding humors, miasmas, and vengeful deities were almost entirely laid to rest. And, as the century progressed, new modes of transmission for specific diseases became known and prevented. Animal vectors like rats and mosquitoes became recognized, as did respiratory and sexual transmission, although some of these, for specific diseases, were already known. Even though food-borne illnesses became acknowledged during this period, we continued to acknowledge other things. Unclean sanitary conditions of the meatpacking industries were exposed by the muckraker Upton Sinclair in his book The Jungle, and also in his much less popular sketch comedy show, The Fungal. Here is the most famous skit from his 4th episode.
Doctor, I think I have botulism.
Quick, I have to inspect your meat.
What?
Yeah, botulism is spread by eating contaminated meat.
Oh no!
Yeah, this is a very high-stakes situation.
The Jungle and The Fungal heavily influenced the passage of the Meat Inspection Act and the Pure Food and Drug Acts in 1906. These regulated the food and medicine markets and set safety regulations to reduce medicinal malpractice and contraction of foodborne illnesses. This was one of the first efforts of the federal and state governments to actively regulate public health. And then, during the influenza pandemic of 1918, municipal and state governments distributed face masks to the public. These actions were important steps toward the government integration into the health of the nation. Of course, all these advances in medicine did little to curb the rampant communicable disease of the nation. The Doctor Doctor sketch was still continuously full of people with bacterial illnesses such as tuberculosis or diphtheria. Fortunately, the Welsh scientist Alexander Fleming unintentionally discovered the antibacterial properties of the penicillium mold in 1928. During World War II, the fungus he started eating became the first successful mass-produced antibiotic under the name penicillin. A new Doctor Doctor sketch immediately exploded on all channels at the same time. People claimed to be infected by its catchy puns. They were given penicillin.
Doctor, doctor, I have every bacterial infection at the same time.
Not to worry, there's a new medicine called penicillin, discovered by a man named Alexander Fleming that will make you all better.
Golly, that's great.
I know, that Fleming must have been a real fun guy.
I have received a correction. Alexander Fleming didn't actually eat the mold. He made an extract of the fungus and fashioned it into a pill. Whatever, Alexander, you do you. Penicillin and cleaner medical practices became the norm. People began to live longer. Penicillin was even overused, creating many antibiotic-resistant bacterial diseases. People were crazy to cure their diseases, and writers of the Doctor Doctor sketch around the nation clamored for more medical advances to base the skits off of. The CDC organized comprehensive mass vaccination campaigns against smallpox, and the disease was eradicated from the US in 1949 and from the world in 1980. The next Doctor Doctor sketch was aired during Grandpa Hour with Eisenhower.
Doctor, doctor, I'm afraid I have smallpox. What do you think?
Oh, wow. Yes, I believe you do.
Oh no, I never thought I would get smallpox.
Wait, smallpox? That was eradicated yesterday. I thought you said small pockets.
Small pocket?
After smallpox became a thing of the past, severe polio scares occurred. This disease ran rampant in the nation, especially among the young male population, crippling some and claiming the lives of others. This prompted Jonas Salk to seek out and find a vaccine for polio in 1955, using an attenuated strain. Months later, the Polio Vaccine Assistance Act enabled the first federal activity in immunization. The federal government stepped into healthcare and gave money to states to promote the administration of the newly developed polio vaccine. One medical professional, Otis L. Anderson, MD, expressed a common response to the act. He wrote, "The whole distribution system that has been described should assure to the maximum extent possible a fair and equitable distribution to all states and persons eligible during the period of shortage." When smallpox was eradicated, the CDC had vaccinated everyone in a circle around infected individuals, essentially isolating them. With the polio vaccine, however, the federal assistance allowed the immunization of many more people, even those who had never been exposed to the disease at all. As a result, polio was, over the next few decades, almost totally eradicated in the US. This triumph was reflected by these sketches again, as pride in American medicine increased the viewership and profitability of running the Doctor Doctor skit. The following was broadcasted on CNN in place of their normal nightly news. It was played on a loop 7 times in a row. Let's check it out.
Doctor, doctor, my son has polio.
Polio? That's impossible. I just immunized him last week.
Yeah, you're right. I just wanted a polio leg.
Get out of my office.
As the vaccine issue settled down, the nation entered the counterculture age of the 1960s. The election of young, sexy JFK inspired sexy, anti-establishment youngsters to take the introduction of the birth control pill to heart. Free love became a lifestyle for people of all shapes, sizes, positions, and orientations, continuing through the 70s as baby boomers asserted their independence from Vietnam and just about everything else. In the 80s, a consequence of such activity crept up on Americans in the form of AIDS. Though it was first thought only to affect gay and bisexual men, intravenous drug users, and Haitians, by the end of the decade, the Centers for Disease Control were in a frenzy to control the over 1 million cases of the disease in men and women of all types. The following Dr. Doctor skit appeared throughout the decade on HBO Hemia during the segment entitled We Blame Reagan.
Doctor, doctor, I have AIDS.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. Your immune system is going to be so weak.
What can we do?
Hope that the federal government aids us.
And yet, no cure for AIDS has been found. Though there are treatment options involving multiple medicines to prevent growth of the disease and side effects/infections. Be safe, y'all. Eat healthily and exercise daily. Anyway, around the same time, a growing number of women were able to make it through grad school and practice medicine. This marked the first time that women were featured as doctors in the Doctor Doctor skits. Additionally, organ transplants became a successful reality in the late 20th century. In celebration of the creation of medicines to help prevent organ rejection in a transplant patient, ABC aired this skit during the finals of So You Think You Can Yuppie? Let's take a look.
Doctor, doctor, you're a woman.
Yes, and you're in need of an organ transplant. I'm now going to give you some anti-rejection medicine.
Well, I guess you can't say no to me when I ask you out on a date Friday night, huh?
The Doctor Doctor sketch has fallen from popularity. The majority of infectious disease in today's society consists of either STIs or diseases contracted by immunocompromised or organ transplant patients. The wide and comprehensive vaccination requirements have nearly removed diseases like tetanus and pertussis from the US population. And, as a result, the Doctor Doctor sketch quickly ran out of material. Infectious disease has simply become too treatable and doesn't affect American life much anymore. The joke in the previous sketch has appeared 23 separate times since it premiered, and each sketch show was immediately cancelled afterwards. So, to conclude our special on the Doctor Doctor skit, we at the TV Guide channel would like to make the final word on the sketch. A Doctor Doctor skit that is so universally applicable and timelessly funny that there will no longer be any reason for shows to broadcast the skits anymore. So, here we go. The best Doctor Doctor sketch to ever air. Let's check it out. Doctor, doctor, I have a cold.
That's pretty sick.
Oh, thank you very much, folks. The last word in medical comedy. As you can see, the Doctor Doctor sketch has reflected the evolution of infectious disease in the nation. From praying away the flu to saving people with no immune systems, medicine has advanced remarkably since the birth of the country. And while it may seem like infectious disease has little effect today, the change over time and impact on current society is undeniable. I have been your narrator today, and now I'm signing off.